Recording. So Neve, are there any like recording voice? Do you have any questions, comments, observations that you'd like to share?
Yes. Thank you. Well,
Sure.
I'm really excited about, am I allowed to say the name of the piece in the recording, or is it a secret?
Yeah.
I won't say it.
No.
Yeah? Okay, Roots Above Ground, right? That's so
Yeah.
beautiful. Um, yeah, and it also feels very like epic. It makes me think of like As Above, So Below, and like spooky, esoteric stuff too. um, but so something that I continue to be fascinated with and continue to be building my vocabulary around is ballet and the intersections of African dance and ballet.
Mm.
And I'm studying at this moment sort of the dance history of like the interaction of choreographers like Catherine Dunham and Balanchine. And
Mm.
particularly, I've been reading Digging the Africanist Aesthetic in American Concert Dance or
Mm.
American Performance. It's by Brenda Dixon Goschild, who's a Black dancer and dance history scholar. And I'm also reading The Black Dancing Body, also by her.
Mm.
And so a local choreographer who's kind of one of our dance stars of Seattle is Donald Byrd. Do you know him?
No.
He's so he worked out of New York for a long time, and then after 9/11 in 2001, he moved to Seattle, and he kind of called himself a like a refugee of 9/11 basically, living because he was living in Manhattan at the time, and he moved to Seattle, and he is now and has been for over a decade the artistic director of Spectrum Dance Theater, which is one of the like ballet informed like contemporary companies in Seattle.
Mm.
Um, and they have a lot of dancers that do both the Pacific Northwest Ballet and Spectrum Dance Theater. They have like a youth training program, summer programs, stuff like that. And Donald Byrd and Brenda Dixon Goschild, I don't know if they were like friends, or if they were colleagues, but she references him in her books. And he then also referenced her via two pieces that he made, Drastic Cuts and Jazz One, which I would love
Mm.
to send both of those to you in order to
Mm.
continue a
Mm.
conversation around it, because the act of highlighting the Africanist aesthetic in contemporary American ballet, which was
Mm.
in many ways brought to European concert dance by Balanchine, being influenced by African and African American choreographers, like Catherine Dunham, and also frequently like on Broadway and stuff. Um, and through looking at that and thinking about that for the last several years, because I got to see the piece live and then I also
Mm.
rewatched it yesterday on YouTube, um, has really given me a lot of freedom in terms of thinking about translation and
Mm.
development between bringing a disabled aesthetic to ballet,
Mm.
rather than just
Mm.
thinking about ballet being like transposed onto the
Your
body.
body. Mm.
Yeah, because something I've definitely thought about in classes of yours that I've taken that
Mm.
are like integrated ballet, and other teachers that you've worked with, is just thinking about how it's not enough to just
Mm.
transpose emotion to one body part, or to just think about like the way that we use sometimes words and verbs that are non-anatomy specific in order to be like, okay, so it's a melt and a fold, right? Or it's a bend at this count or whatever. Just kind of thinking about the roundness and three-dimensionality of translation and adaptation. And so something that has been one of the most challenging relationships for me has been a lot of what are the conceit is probably the wrong word, maybe motif of ballet, right? Which is that we're like super upright, that our shoulders are down, like all of these things that we believe and accept to be true about ballet, which then does not work very well for the way that, say, a chair using body is going to actually be doing ballet. And so like I've seen sort of like tendu translations being like with arms, right? But something I saw in Jazz 1 was this motion that was like this, and they're all able-bodied dancers, right? But it was like this, and it somehow spoke a tendu to me, and I was like, cool, but it had such a like a more grounded, meaty, Africanist, cool aesthetic, which is really to me like jazz is the collision of those aesthetics, you know? And something that happens, this is a long thought, Marc, I'm sorry. Something
That's all right, I'm intrigued.
When we were at I'm trying to remember, it might have been 2018, it was one of the intensives that I attended, and I remember that there was a Black dancer who's a participant who's not disabled, I think they were not disabled, but they worked with disabled people, and their background was really in hip hop, and one thing that they were saying was like, oh, I'm really not used to like dancing without music or dancing without rhythm being like established of like, these are the points that we're hitting and when, you know? And that got me thinking like, oh, like inclusive dance, physically integrated dance is very white in so many ways in terms of what we think of as its point of origin. Like, I feel like in many ways, the ways that contemporary dance, it's often like tacitly accepted that roots of contemporary dance are ballet, even though contemporary is a very vague word that could encompass so many things. I'm like, why is it that I think of improvisation and I think of, contemporary improvisation, physically integrated dance, inclusive dance, as often very European rooted? And so I'm like, oh, I don't want to just free myself of ableism. I want to free myself of white supremacy too. So it has added this other dimensionality to how I'm thinking about adapting ballet, that include really working against some of the accepted physical forms of ballet. And I've definitely seen you do that in terms of like when we're doing stuff with our heads, right, and our backs, that is like not something that you would really see very much in classical ballet, at least. So I guess I'm just curious, because for me, this fellowship does have a lot to do with like thinking about my own movement from like classical dance and classical training to contemporary dance and contemporary training, and like the fact that I'm kind of working backwards because I started with contemporary as opposed to starting with ballet. So it's important to me, and so I just am curious what thoughts this brings up for you, and if you have any ideas of how we can keep checking in around this topic while also being in conversation with your piece and its aesthetics.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, yeah, I mean, it sparked lots of things for me, even in my own sort of translations or thoughts around ballet and translating ballet. And, you know, to be totally transparent and honest, I mean, I learned ballet, you know, as a non-disabled person. So I did learn ballet, you know, from a Russian style called Vaganova style, you know, so that was and I was 11 when I first started ballet. I had no idea what it was. But I remember even when I was doing, at that age, 11, I was doing pliés and tendus. I wasn't in the right positions, but I was bending, you know, but maybe I was bending parallel. And then my tendus was like, put my foot out and put it back, put my foot out and put it back, until someone, you know, until someone was making me like fulfill a certain aesthetic. And I like the idea that you're trying to strip that back and go, actually, what happens if you don't come from that European aesthetic of how it should look, and start off with, actually, I'm coming from, you know, this style of dance, whether it's hip hop, African, whatever it may be, and I apply that style to this technique, rather than trying to fit that technique from a European white perspective. So that's put a switch into me. I know when I do teach ballet, I'm like, okay, yes, I use the words and verbs, and because I want people to find what a plie or a bend means to them, what a tendu extension, what a développé or an unfold means to them. But I think my reference point is also what I was taught as a non-disabled dancer. But I also still want to give people the freedom to find what theirs are, you know, so, and drawing on what their style and background and heritage may be. So I think I think you've raised some great points that we still need to support, you know, like there's work to be done there, and to unfold, to unpack what that can be, and trying not to like do the same thing of like, let's try to fit it into this, you know, European style of ballet. Right. So what can it be?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it does obviously make me jump to the feeling of like, why do I even want to emulate it or be reminiscent of it at all? Which is that but the reason for me is that I just find it very, very beautiful. I do.
And I will say that, you know, ballet does, even if you're, you know, like I'm translating, ballet does provide, in regards to technique, it does definitely make you aware of alignment and placement. But not saying that only ballet will do that, but it does offer you, you know, being aware of that, you know, that line, that linear, that placement, what's working in and around your center. So the right side's working like this, and the other side's doing a port de bras. You know, there is this thing that ballet does offer. And you do see, you know, and it makes you aware of your placement, you know, where your arms, your hands, your legs, where your head may be. It's all very anatomical, you know, in all of its placements. But with that, it's also great to be able to let that go. But you can always tell someone that's had that ballet training.
Right. Right. I know. And it's funny because I feel like I very quickly have incorporated and emulated the look of that training to a lot of things that I do without really having had that training. I also started ballet when I was 10, and I did take, I think, like a year and a half of it. But unfortunately, there was an integrated ballet company, or even maybe it was an all wheelchair user ballet in New Jersey at the time, and I did not get to work with them. I don't remember why, but I began working just in a ballet studio that was near my house. And then I also started working at Broadway Bound, which was like ballet, tap, and jazz. But in the first ballet studio that I took classes at, I was put in a separate class with the one other disabled person. And we were taught some of the fundamentals of ballet, but we were definitely condescended to. We were definitely like yeah, spoken to like we couldn't possibly understand it really. And like we weren't taught the terminology in order to like help that recall, you know, that I remember. I do remember really enjoying looking at myself in the mirror and like drawing myself later and feeling really actually sure of like what my body looked like in space. And that felt really good. But other than that, it was totally weird. And the show that they did was Mary Poppins, the ballet. And I was like, oh, we're going to be in it, right? Like we're going to be in the recital because we're a part of this studio. It hadn't even occurred to her, even though she put every single one of her classes in the recital, it had not occurred to her to put us in it. And so she put us in, and I will remember this forever. She put us in the song, Stay Away, Don't Rest Your Head. And she had us sign ASL during it instead of doing any ballet. It's like this layering of ableism that was like very strange. But as a little kid, you know, I got to wear a tutu and I had makeup on and my hair all pulled back into a bun and I felt like I was in a ballet recital. But yeah, I think the thing that I am interested in and interested in, I'm interested in creating a new foundation for folks. Like I really, it actually made me cry a little bit. I felt like a whew. As opposed to us always like hearkening back to like what kind of training you had. I do see inclusive dance and physically integrated dance and access-centered movement as I am building it to be their own foundations in many ways, but they're not anatomical foundations. They're not necessarily like culturally referenced foundations. And I want to make that. And because I really think that one of the things that has been the most radical to me about being a dancer and being a dancer who's been disabled my whole life has been getting to know my body. And one of the ways that I've gotten to know my body has been by like taking such a wide variety of like dance classes and studying dance history and studying bodies and getting like a personal trainer certification, even though it's not as fun as dance. And like all of that has helped me feel really specific about what I'm doing and what I'm asking others to do. And I'm like, is there a way to create a foundation that is like technical and specific in so many ways, but is still like referencing and aware of the actual breadth of bodies that there are? That is food for thought, and I'm gonna go let Violet out because she's said it's
she's
time
singing
for
about
again. Okay. But talk because it's recorded if you want to.
Oh yes. Well, yeah. I mean, if you're still listening, I was thinking the dancers come back on the 3rd of August, and we're going to be, you know, doing our classes. So it'd be great to find some time if you feel comfortable and wanting to give it a go to explore that, whether it's a set of the class or a workshop, to explore some of that.
Yes, a class.
And yes, and maybe because I know that's something you did mention about you want to teach class, company class. So when we come back, we're going to look at, I'm trying to find a balance now because it got too much doing Monday to Friday, open class every day. So it's like that, you know, which is great that we were giving, but they also need to have training themselves and they weren't getting enough training. And so what we're going to do is like Monday, Wednesdays will be open company class. The Tuesday, Thursday, Fridays will be closed company class just for us to train. So we could make a time for you that works with your schedule to almost like to have an hour and a half with all of us to explore this.
Yes, I would love that.
Okay. Well, I'll email you and we'll work out, because I'm building the schedule now. So Monday, Tuesday next week, we'll work out what days, whether it's, if we could do like say Fridays would be, and whether you want to do every Friday for August or every second Friday. It could be like 10:30 the dance will start, 10:30 to 12, that we can do, and just think about how do you want to frame it. So would it be, just think about like if you had to describe it to somebody, how would you describe it? And if you had a title for it, what would that title be? Because the dancers ask, we can give them that information, like, it's going to lead us through this exploration or through, so now they're interested in investigating within their time as being a fellow here with us.
Yeah.
So that'd be great.
Yes. Oh, yay. I would love that. I am, especially because I am taking like the next couple weeks off from teaching, but then in August, my plan was to kind of begin having almost like a roster, like a curriculum of classes that I teach throughout the week, just from my own Zoom account. I'm gonna buckle down and get a paid Zoom account because I am my own business engine. So yeah, that would be amazing to have a company class for the dancers be a part of that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll email you on Monday with some ideas and see what you think.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds exciting.
Yes, it is. And thanks for your wonderful advice and, like allowing me to just like brain dump on you everything I'm going through in regards to everything changing every day in regards to what my creative process may be, also what the outcome could be, what the presentation may be. It's all moving parts at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, thank you also, because I want your brain dumps. That's the reason why. That's why I applied to do this. So I'm like, tell me everything that you're thinking about.
I definitely feel lighter now, Neve. So thank you.
Yay, good.
Yeah.
Maybe it was my hair. My hair is cheery.
All of it. It was everything. Good. So next is like, I know we're going to meet every 2 weeks, but I go on vacation from the 15th to the 31st.
Okay.
So then we probably will connect back in August, like the first week of August. But what I will do Monday, Tuesday is talk to you by email to set up what it may look like for your regular class with Access, your investigator class, or experiment, whatever it may be, whatever you want to think of framing it and how you want to explore it. So we'll set that up.
Cool. Yay.
Yay. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes. Thank you.
Pleasure. I will, once this finishes, I'll save this recording. And where have I been putting the recordings?
I think you put them on Google Drive and then emailed me a link.
Okay. Did we have a folder? I can't even remember whether they had a folder or not.
I don't think we do. We could, because you also have the recording from the last time, and I used some of it and edited it into my diary.
I saw that. I just don't know. I don't know where I put it, but I'll find it. Okay, my dearest.
All right.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.